So, Arsenal will finish second place for the third season in a row. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down what we learned from Arsenal 1, Newcastle 0. Because while that was a big win for Arsenal, even though we know you probably would have battered Southampton, you don't want to go into the final game of the season thinking if you don't win, you might not get Champions League football. That would be a big crazy twist in the season. Now, I think it's going to be really funny if Bournemouth can get a result versus Man City and Man City miss out. I think that would be hilarious. But we're going to talk about the game, what we learned. We're going to talk about Arsenal, we're going to talk about Newcastle, we're going to talk about one thing that I think Arsenal fans are getting really wrong about their team. But if I was to sum up the game quickly here in 30 seconds, I thought Newcastle started excellently. I thought Newcastle were the much better team in the first half, but Newcastle didn't really show up in the second half. The lack of bench depth was there. I think Isak was a huge miss because I think Newcastle had chances to be 1-2 up by the first 30 minutes, but they did not take those chances. David Raya was excellent. Kiwior was my man of the match. I thought he was Arsenal's best player today. But while Arsenal defended well, and while Arsenal were the better team in the second half and they had a professional performance in the second half, and Newcastle dropped off definitely in the second half, I think Arsenal's attack was so static. So static. Even when Kai Havertz came on, there was a little bit of a lack of movement there. Now, obviously, Kai Havertz being back will be big for next season. He was definitely missed. You've had injury issues with Saka. I thought Martinelli was okay today. But I'm seeing Arsenal fans being like, yeah, we don't need Victor Gyokeres. This game, showed 100% why Arsenal need Victor Gyokeres. And some Arsenal fans I've seen say they don't want Victor Gyokeres. This game was screaming out for Victor Gyokeres because Arsenal's attacking dynamics, other than set pieces and Declan Rice screamers from outside the box, I'm not seeing where the goals are coming. And that's been an issue all season. We're going to talk about that in more detail, but let's get into my general thoughts on the match. So as I said, Newcastle won the much better side in the first half, but they did not take the chances, which cost them. Had Isak been fit and not Callum Wilson, maybe Newcastle go in 2-0 up at half-time, and by then maybe they can sit deeper, they can defend deeper, and it's a more difficult game for Arsenal. One thing I've noticed with Newcastle is they do start most of their games better and drop off in the second half, which is an issue that Eddie Howe needs to address next season. I do think running out of steam towards the end of the season, probably, missing a little bit of depth in that midfield. They need a centre mid for depth. Elliot Anderson was a big miss. I think he would have been used had he been around. You probably need a long-term centre-back for depth. Despite Botman, Shaw and Byrne being good players, you need that long-term guy coming in. You probably need like an Mbeumo who could cover Isak if he's injured and also play on the right and challenge Murphy. There's question marks around goalkeeper as well. That was shown. Arsenal definitely put a professional performance in the second half. I said one thing about Arsenal is they haven't got scrappy wins. Arsenal have had a lot of games where they've dominated, they've created the better chances, and they've not won the game because they didn't take the chances. Today, I wouldn't say that Arsenal were dominant, but I'd say they were very professional in the second half. But it wasn't like Nick Pope was having to make world over save. I think the better chances fell to Newcastle, but for a change, Arsenal took their chance, and it was a Declan Rice screamer. And, the thing about Arsenal is they look most threatening when it comes to sort of defenders from set pieces or Declan Rice from outside the box. So they need to get that threat in that middle of the pitch where they're going to have chances, or Victor Gyokeres is going to make a run and you're going to find him and he's going to cause problems. This is why you need, for me, a Victor Gyokeres. Now, we're going to talk about that in more detail in a second. I thought Kiwior was man of the match. I think he did well. I think he stepped up well. I thought David Raya made some good saves. Poor distribution, but good saves. He was key for Arsenal. I thought Declan Rice stepped up when needed despite a slow start. Botman, Tonali and Bruno impressed me for Newcastle. That's sort of my general thoughts. I thought the intensity of Arsenal definitely stepped up in the second half. They got the job done. Not the best performance. And I have to say, I've watched Man City and I've watched Arsenal this season. I think both of you are a little bit boring to watch in the sense of the way that you play football. Now, for me, Arsenal are the best team in Europe out of possession. When it comes to out of possession, when it comes to defending, Arsenal are the best team in Europe. So if Arsenal go 1-0 up, despite no Gabriel Saliba, because of how well they're set up at possession, I expect Arsenal to keep the leads. But I do think going forward, Arsenal's attacking dynamic is missing something, and that's going to have to be sorted in the window, which, from the way Arteta was speaking, Declan Rice was speaking after the game, those at Arsenal were speaking, you are going to address that, because I thought your attack was static. I thought it was a bit static today. I like Saka. I think he's a world-class player, but he didn't have a lively game. Odegaard got the assist, but again, didn't maybe put the influence on the game he'd like. I actually thought, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, and maybe you're going to call me deluded in the comments, but I thought Martinelli was the best attacking-minded player for Arsenal today. I felt that when he got the ball, he held it up quite well. But Livramento did seem to do well against him in those. Actually, it was more Murphy on his side, but he was a good outlet. He wanted to make things happen. He used his body well. Apart from right at the end. But yeah, Arsenal lacked variety and spark. I think still too safe in the final third. And the title of this video is going to be Arsenal fans are so wrong about this, because I looked at that game and there's a guy called Victor Gyokeres whose movement is so good. His dynamic runs are so good. His ability to create something out of nothing is so good. And that's what Arsenal needs. Someone that's a transition threat, someone that's going to make runs, someone that's going to provide movement, someone that's going to create something out of nothing. And that's what Victor Gyokeres brings. Is Victor Gyokeres on paper the perfect striker for Arsenal? No, he's not the perfect striker for Arsenal on paper. Do you know who is? Isak. But I'm telling you this now, Isak will not leave Newcastle this summer. He's going to stay at Newcastle. You're not going to get Isak. And there's not a perfect striker out there for you. So you've got to look and go, £54 million for a guy that scored 100 goals in the last 2 seasons. Arsenal fans turn their nose up at Kai Havertz and now celebrating him because he scored 20 goals up front for Arsenal. If Kai Havertz can score 20 goals, Victor Gyokeres can score 30 goals. If Mikel Merino can get goals up front, Victor Gyokeres will get goals. Yes, he's not the perfect stylistic fit. Yes, you're going to adapt. Yes, he would do best with a 10. So if you have Declan Rice, Subamende pivot, you probably would want to get Xavi Simons or Morgan Rogers as the 10. We'll see how Odegaard does, but he likes a Morgan Rogers type 10 that could run in behind. That's how you get the best out of Victor Gyokeres. Yes, changes would need to be made. But I'm seeing Arsenal fans online, and it's not all Arsenal fans. It's not all Arsenal fans. A lot of Arsenal fans are hyping up Gyokeres, but I've seen a percentage of Arsenal fans online saying no to Gyokeres. They don't need Gyokeres. This game shows why Arsenal fans are wrong about that. You do need Gyokeres. £54 million, 100 goals in 2 seasons. Surely, you need a player like Victor Gyokeres. I don't want you to get Victor Gyokeres. I'm a Man United fan. I want Victor Gyokeres to go to Man United. And there's elements of Victor Gyokeres' game that isn't the best, and he may struggle with at Arsenal. But if Kai Havertz is getting 20 goals as a striker, if Merino was getting almost double figures goals as a striker, then Gyokeres at striker, he's going to do well. He's better than Sesko. He is much better than Sesko. Isak is just not realistic. Julian Alvarez is not realistic. The striker market is dead. I don't see why some Arsenal fans are so negative about the idea of signing Victor Gyokeres. If I'm Arsenal, I go for Victor Gyokeres, I go for Morgan Rogers, and I go for maybe a Semenyo type winger because I don't think you'll get Rodrigo. That's what I'd do. So let's talk about Newcastle, and then we will go back to Arsenal. I thought Newcastle had a very strong first half. I thought Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes ran the midfield. I thought Declan Rice was excellent in the second half, but he looked a little bit injured in the first half. I thought Tonali and Bruno were running the show, and I was so impressed with Newcastle's ability to play out in that first half. As a Man United fan, it's really frustrating to see how Man United is struggling to adapt to this back three. But I'm seeing Newcastle playing in this back three, which of course they've done here and there under Howe, but they don't normally play this. And the way that they would position themselves, the movement, the off-the-ball runs, the playing out, it was like they've been doing it for ages. And it made me jealous as a Man United fan to be like, well, how can Newcastle players adapt so quickly to this and do this so well and do that so well? Yet the Man United players seem to struggle with whatever happens. Well, the truth is Newcastle players are just better than us. When you've got Tonali and when you've got Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, they are better than Ugarte and Casemiro. Casemiro 5 years ago is a different question, but they are better. And for me, I felt that Arsenal struggled in that midfield in the first half. I thought the midfield did well. I thought the fullbacks were just, I think Ben White came up and caused a few issues. But again, the Newcastle fullbacks were getting up there and causing issues, or the wingbacks, as we should say. But I thought in the second half, Arteta was like, we're going to give Newcastle less space. We're going to give them less of the ball, because Newcastle had a lot of the ball in that first half and tire out Newcastle. And that's what Arsenal did. And they kept the ball better in the second half. They had more control. And that's what Arsenal did. Newcastle created chances, but they couldn't finish. No, Isak hurt them. Callum Wilson. I don't want to be mean, but he's done. He's done. He's done. And it's not completely his fault. He's had injuries. This time a year ago, the way we'd speak about Callum Wilson would be different. But he's had too many injuries. Whenever he's had cameos, he's done. At least Osula was chasing down his man. Yeah, Callum Wilson, I think, is just done for Newcastle. I don't like to be mean, because I think he was a good player, but he's just not got the physical levels to do it in the Premier League anymore. He's just fallen off so much. And yeah, the second half of Newcastle, the energy dropped. And when you need to make subs, you've got Emil Kraft, which, look, good servant to the club, but Emil Craft. You know, Lewis Smiley, who looked great young kid, great potential, but probably needs a loan. Willock, who sadly has not really kicked on in his Newcastle career. And Osula, who's obviously brought in for a couple million quid as sort of an emergency option, who I do like Osula. I quite like the look of him. And, but that's not, if you're going to be playing Champions League football and you're playing Real Madrid and you need a goal with 10 minutes to go, they're not the 4 subs you want to be making. And of course, no Isak was a blow. But I look at Newcastle, they should get Mbeumo. They should get a midfielder. I'm trying to think. Belieber would be excellent. I don't know if you get him. I think Brighton will make him 100 million. I think you should. You can't get Hoyson, but I'd definitely go for Mark Gay if you can get him. There's a couple of good centre backs in Serie A though that I want to watch as well. But I think you'll be going right-footed centre back as a long-term Shah replacement. You're potentially looking at a goalkeeper like Joan Garcia. Potentially, you might, if Trippier goes, wing back depth, but maybe even another option in the 10. Could you be looking at a number 10? Would Eddie Howe want Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali? I don't know. But I think depth has been an issue for Newcastle. And this is what I said. You know, Willock and Miley just can't fill in when Joel Linton's injured. And I really like Lewis Miley. I think he's a talent. But you just don't have that guy to go in when Joel Linton's injured. I like Livramento. I thought he did a good game today, other than when he got the ball and hesitated in the first half. Newcastle could have made more of that attack. I think a winger, striker, midfielder, and centre back is probably needed for Newcastle. When I say winger and striker, maybe just a versatile forward, someone like Mbeumo that could play right wing and striker. But you have a really good base 11 when everybody's fit, and that's why you're third. And if you'd have won today, second place in the Premier League, and had Isak and Joel Linton be fit, maybe you win today. You've beaten Arsenal many times this season. But it's definitely the depth. And when you're going to be in European football, probably the Champions League next season, you need to solve that. So yeah, my summary of the game. Arsenal have had an underwhelming season. They're still lacking killer instinct, but they've shown signs in the first and second phase. One of the best teams in the first and second phase. They need to improve in that final phase. And if they do, they can challenge for trophies, which is something they haven't done for the last 5 years. Well, they've challenged, but they haven't won one. That's the word. They need 2 to 3 attacking-minded signings. I think Subamende will definitely be needed. I don't think Thomas Partey was good. He gave the ball away a couple of times. I think Newcastle, look, if someone had said to Newcastle fans in August, after he had that awful transfer window of nothing, that they would finish third place, they would be in third place going into the final game of the season and won the Carabao Cup, I think every Newcastle fan would be gassed by that. I think most Newcastle fans predicted push the top 6, hopefully win a trophy. If you'd have said third in the final game of the season and Carabao Cup, I think most Newcastle fans would be gassed. So take that, Newcastle. You know, disappointing to lose, I can imagine, but you gave it fight, and I think Arsenal had the better players, you know, and that's just the truth of the matter. Everton are missing Branthwaite, I believe, as well. I think he came off injured in the game earlier today, so that could be a boost ahead of that game. If you beat Everton, you get Champions League football. I want to just give Jacob Kiwior another shout out. Raya got man of the match, but I thought Kiwior was immense. There was a lot of box defending that needed to be done today. A lot of balls going in the box, and Kiwior dealt with it well. I quite liked Calafiori at centre back as well. It was a good defensive performance from Arsenal. Clean tackles, they won headers, they positioned themselves well, they read danger well, particularly during Newcastle's fast start. But Arsenal needed someone to step in. I don't know why it says Zinchenko off form. I meant to put Odegaard off form, and Kiwior delivered. So I think Odegaard had a better game today, but I think he just wasn't able to maybe make the impact he would have liked in that first half. But he got the assist in the second half. Arsenal got the win, and I think Kiwior was very good. But the attack, I think Saka's fantastic. I thought Martinelli had a promising game. If you can get Odegaard back into his best form, with Kai Havertz coming back, you're going to be in a much better position next year. But you definitely need 2 individuals coming in, and I think you need Gyokeres, and I can't believe some Arsenal fans are saying no to Gyokeres. I can't. I'm surprised. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he comes, maybe he flops, but I feel like you really need Gyokeres. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.